after the match. 1. Victory and celebration. The Gryffindor common room was alive with celebration. The air was thick with the smell of butterbeer and fire whiskey, though Hermione had already confiscated at least 2 bottles of the latter from Seamus and Dean. The walls seemed to tremble under the cheers and laughter of students who were reveling in Gryffindor's spectacular victory over Slytherin in today's Quidditch match. Harry Potter, the star of the evening, stood in the middle of it all, smiling as his teammates clapped him on the back. He had pulled off an incredible catch, diving nearly 10 meters and snatching the snitch just before it slipped through his fingers. His hair was even messier than usual, damp with sweat, and his cheeks were flushed from both excitement and the fire whisker that someone had sneaked into his mug. Across the room, Hermione Granger sat curled up on one of the armchairs near the fireplace, pretending to read but failing miserably. She couldn't take her eyes off him. She had seen him fly 100 times before, but today had been different. Today, as she watched him soar through the sky, twisting through the air like he was born to be there, something had shifted inside her. Something she had tried to ignore for far too long. "Hermione," a voice interrupted her thoughts. Ginny Weasley plopped down onto the couch beside her, smirking. "You do realize you're staring, right?" Hermione snapped her book shut and straightened her posture. "I am not." Ginny laughed, tossing her long red hair over her shoulder. "Sure, and Ron doesn't eat like a troll." Hermione rolled her eyes, but her cheeks warmed under Ginny's knowing gaze. "I was just thinking." "About Harry?" Ginny teased, nudging her playfully. Hermione opened her mouth to protest. But what was the point? Ginny knew her too well. Instead, she sighed. He was amazing today." Ginny's smirk softened into something more thoughtful. "Yeah, he was." She glanced over at Harry, who was now laughing at something Ron had said, his green eyes shining with happiness. "And he's completely in love with you, you know." Hermione's heart stuttered. "Ginny!" "Come on, Hermione," Ginny interrupted. "Everyone sees it. Well, except for Ron. But he's oblivious to most things. And you," she poked Hermione's arm, "need to stop overthinking and do something about it." Hermione hesitated, chewing on her bottom lip. Could she? Could she cross that line? Before she could answer, a familiar voice called out, "Hermione!" Harry had broken away from the crowd and was making his way toward her, his lopsided grin still firmly in place. Ginny winked at her before slipping away into the crowd. 2. The Quiet Escape. "Hey," Harry said, stopping in front of her chair. "You're not celebrating?" Hermione smiled up at him. "I am celebrating. Just in a quieter way." Harry chuckled and held out a hand. "Come with me." Hermione blinked. "Where?" Harry only smirked. "You'll see." She hesitated for only a second before taking his hand. His fingers were warm, slightly calloused from years of gripping a broomstick, and when they curled around hers, her stomach flipped. Without another word, he led her out of the common room, past the still roaring party, and into the quiet corridors of Hogwarts. It was late, and the castle was mostly deserted. The only sounds their footsteps against the stone floor. The torches flickered softly as they walked, neither of them speaking. But Hermione felt no need to break the silence. Finally, they arrived at their destination. the astronomy tower. Hermione exhaled in awe as she stepped onto the balcony, the cool night air wrapping around her. The sky was clear, dotted with endless stars, and the view of the castle grounds stretched out below them, bathed in silver moonlight. Harry leaned against the stone railing, grinning. Better than a noisy common room. Hermione shook her head in amusement. Much. She moved to stand beside him, resting her hands on the cold stone. The breeze ruffled her hair, and she shivered slightly. Without hesitation, Harry shrugged off his Quidditch robes and draped them over her shoulders. Hermione looked up at him, startled. You don't have to. You're cold, Harry said simply, as if that was reason enough. And maybe it was. She pulled the robes tighter around herself, inhaling the faint scent of him. Wind, leather, and something distinctly Harry. You were incredible today, she said softly, staring out at the horizon. Harry glanced at her, smiling. You already said that. I know. She turned to face him fully. But I don't think I ever told you how much I admire you. Harry blinked, caught off guard. Hermione. I mean it, she continued, her voice steady. Not just for Quidditch, for everything. You're brave and kind and selfless. You make people feel safe just by being around. She hesitated, then added, You make me feel safe. Harry's smile faded into something softer, something more vulnerable. Hermione, you've always been the one who made me feel safe. The space between them suddenly felt smaller, charged with something unspoken. Hermione's heart pounded. Harry, she whispered. His gaze flicked to her lips for the briefest second before locking onto her eyes again. He swallowed hard. If I kiss you right now, he murmured, is that a bad idea? Hermione exhaled shakily. I don't think so. Harry hesitated for only a heartbeat before leaning in. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, like a question waiting for an answer. But when Hermione sighed against his lips, her fingers curling into the fabric of his sweater, Harry deepened it, his hands finding her waist and pulling her closer. It was warm, intoxicating, right? And as the stars above them shimmered, Hermione knew there was no going back. 3. What now? When they finally pulled apart, their breaths mingling in the cool night air, Harry let out a nervous chuckle. Well, that was long overdue, Hermione finished, a teasing smile on her lips. Harry grinned. Yeah, that. She laughed softly, resting her forehead against his. What now? Harry tilted her chin up gently. Now I walk you back. And tomorrow, we figure it out. Together. Hermione smiled. Together. Hand in hand, they made their way back to the castle, their hearts lighter than they had been in a long time. And as the party raged on inside the common room, Harry and Hermione knew they had just started something that would change everything. For the better. The end.